here we are. This is my GitHub page again. This is where you'll go to find all the information for a lab. For all the labs, I'll have little GitHub repos to work with. Um, so for this first lab, here are our objectives up here. I want to just kind of walk you through all the things you need to do to install RStudio, install the different packages that we'll need this term, read the introduction of my little book thing, and then the lab assignment will be to do cones 1 and 2, which teach you about vectors and pipes in R. So let's get started. Okay. So setting up your workspace, you're going to start with grabbing a computer, and it's basically just got to be, it can be a Mac, it can be a Windows, it can be a Linux machine, it can be a laptop or a desktop. It just can't be a Chromebook, an iPad, it can't be a phone. If you don't have a computer to work with, please let me know ASAP, and there are some workarounds that we can discuss. So first grab a computer. Now go here, click this link to download and install R. So you'll click it. This is where it'll take you. There are different buttons to press if you have a Linux or a Mac. I have a Mac, so that's purple because I've done it recently. This is what you'll do for Windows. And yeah, you basically just follow all the instructions here. This is, if you have I clicked on the one for Mac, so if you have a Mac, you'll download this. But pay attention. This is for if you have an Apple with the Apple Silicon chip. If you have an older Apple machine, then with an Intel processor chip thing, whatever, then you'll hit this button, and it'll also talk to you. Yeah, you'll need Xquartz. You'll also need to install Xquartz if you have a Mac, and it looks like whether or not you have an Apple Silicon chip or an Intel chip, you should go ahead and follow this link to download Xquartz, and just follow all the instructions that you need to install it. I don't think you need to install Xquartz. This is Xquartz. Install that. I don't think you'll need to install Xquartz if you have a Windows or a Linux. Okay, so you'll install R. You'll install RStudio. RStudio is just the development environment that we'll use to interact with R. Here I have it up here. It shows you plots and help docs here. It lets you interact with your R script here and run code by kind of dropping it down into your console here. So just handy way to interact with R. So you'll install RStudio Desktop by going here, and you'll click. So we've already installed R. We've done the step 1. You'll do the step 2. Download RStudio Desktop, and it should know what computer you're using, I guess, here, and just follow all the instructions for that. Let me know if you have any questions or you're running into any problems during all the installations, because something always comes up that I don't expect, we'll be able to figure it out, and we'll be able to work out what you're doing, but yeah, let me know. Reach out and let me know. Send me an email as soon as you have an issue. I'll respond quickly, and I just want to get everybody set up as soon as possible so that you can have as much time as possible to work on the lab assignment, and you don't get hung up on this stuff. So the next step is to open RStudio and then install some packages. So you can like copy paste this, or there's a little button here, and you press the button and it's already copied into your clipboard. So you'll run these lines of code in your console in RStudio to make sure that you have all the packages installed that we'll use for R. So you've copied this, you're gonna bring it into RStudio here, and you're just gonna, Command V it into your console, and then press enter. And it's gonna take a little bit of time It might prompt you to restart R. You should say yes. Sometimes it keeps on doing that repeatedly, and then you should say no. Always something weird that happens. Then go ahead and install, run these lines of code. You'll just copy it, bring it into RStudio, bring it into your console, just like that. Hit enter. This installs some packages, and then installs from GitHub a package that I made called Kelp, and it stands for Quick Help. So it's just a bunch of help docs that I wrote because I found that so help docs are the best way to learn about your functions and how to program in R. But the R help docs are a lot for beginners. It's just a lot of information, and a lot of information that you don't need to pay attention to. So I created this package Kelp, which you're downloading here, which it's alternative help docs for most of the functions that you'll use in this class, and it kind of takes the pain out of it. Hopefully, it's just the stuff that's important to you and none of the rest. And then you can test to make sure that you've downloaded that properly. If you hit, if you just run this line of code, which is it says, let me delete this. Whenever you want to bring up a Kelp doc so it's help docs into the lower right hand pane. You'll press question mark, which means I want the help doc for this function. And then this is a function. It's the install packages, but you want the help doc from the package Kelp. You want the easy ones that I made. So you say, I want, it was the functions 2 colons and it's Kelp. That's how you bring up the Kelp doc for any function. You can kind of resize this to read it better. And this is the help doc that I wrote on the function install.packages, which just installs packages. And I have some examples here. All right, so let's go on. So if that works, if that brings up the help doc in the lower right-hand pane, then you've done everything correct up until now. So that's kind of a check. Sometimes it'll prompt you when you run I think like the DevTools line of code, it'll prompt you. It'll say, do you want to do something? Yes, no, cancel. And you actually have to type in here, yes. Some people miss that. You say yes and then enter. All right. So next step is to download this lab assignment. So it says scroll to the top of this page and hit the green button that says code and then hit download zip. So hopefully it's green for everybody. You'll hit code and then down here it says download zip. And it downloads a zip file into your downloads folder. You need to unzip it. On a Mac, you can just kind of double click it or something to unzip it. On a Windows, you have to say extract. And then after you've done that, you're going to keep on reading here. So you'll find the file that you unzipped, and it's basically going to be all the code, or all it's going to have two files here, one called R and one called tests, and then some other stuff here, including an R project. So this is what'll be in that file. And then what I want you to do is to open up that R project in RStudio. So what you'll be able to do probably is once you see the file that you've unzipped, look at where it says EC320 Lab 1. It may say main here because it's the main branch of this GitHub repository. So you'll just double click where it says, EC320 Lab 1 main RProj. Double click that and RStudio should open. If it doesn't open, you'll just go to RStudio and go to File, Open Project. So I'll say File, Open Project, and then you'll find, show you all my stuff. You'll find EC320 Lab 1. And yeah, let's see. Okay, last thing is, so you're in our studio, you're in the right project. You can always see what project you're in our studio at this upper right hand thing, and you can click it to switch projects. I'll have a different R project for every lab that we do. So if you're in lab 2, but you want to be in lab 1, you can just go up here and switch it. So you should see, this is EC320 Lab 1. This is all the stuff that'll be in the thing that you downloaded. I want you to go to R, the folder that says R, and in that folder, these are the lab assignments. Cone 1 and Cone 2. The Cone 1 is on vectors and Cone 2 is on pipes, and that's what you're going to do to turn in on Friday. Let me just quickly go over this. So you're going to read, first you're going to read the introduction here. They're just a couple of notes that I made about programming in R on my iPad. And I kind of outlined, today we're going to do the introduction, and we're going to start tidy data. Next week we're going to do tidy data, then we're going to move on to dplyr and ggplot2, and then I put a chapter 5 on per down there, but we probably won't get to it in this course. I also teach 421, so we definitely do it. We do a lot of per in 421, so I just included it here. But this is the heart of the tidyverse right here. Go ahead and read this. It's a little bit of philosophy about programming. That's kind of fun. I stole this whole intro from this book about. It was used for years and years at MIT to teach programming, and it's just a really beautiful, wonderful book. It's called The Wizard Book, and you'll see when you read it. This intro. Then I talk a little bit about the benefits of using R. Why are we using R as opposed to something else? And it's because it's great, obviously. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Then I talk a little bit about R's shortcomings. I think it's important to know when you're when you're learning a programming language, you want to learn why it's good and why it's not so good. Every programming language has benefits and it has shortcomings, and I think it's important to understand those. So I added it here. Then I added a little bit about what good code is, like what are our objectives here, what are we striving to do? And the first thing is get the right answer, right? If you've got the right answer, you can always just stop there. I don't think anything in the world can be more frustrating than programming sometimes. It can also be really, really rewarding. So once you get to the right answer, you can always just stop there. I know some of you are going to want to pull your hair out and scream at some point during this class. And it's good to remember you can just you should just calm down and just, once you get to the right answer, you can always just stop there. And I'm here to support you. Come to Wednesday lab, come to Friday office hour, and we'll figure it out. If you have errors in your R script, it's not quite ready to turn in. So you have to work on it. Come see me, and we'll figure it out. Then, the next highest level of what good code is once you've got the right answer, are you solving the problem in the simplest possible way? Is your solution elegant because it's, as simple as possible? And I wrote down here, it's a little bit small. Like I said before, you really want to learn about using functions in R by reading their help docs. So I say, question, kelp, library to find the kelp docs, the quick help docs on the function library or install packages. That's how you want to learn about programming in R. Read the help docs. And you always kind of even if you know how to program in R very well, you always use these help docs as a reference, right? Because you just forget what arguments some function takes. So that's why it's just in the lower right-hand pane. You can bring it up at any point just to remind yourself. I say don't. So these things, I think, can be wonderful and can help a lot, but they will not necessarily help you figure out how to find an elegant solution that solves the problem in the simplest way. So I can, it'll probably be pretty easy to figure out which of you are using ChatGPT to solve, your lab assignments and the computational assignments for this course, because you will use functions that I didn't teach you, really weird, obscure things on the internet that are not the simplest way to solve the problem. And ChatGPT is an amazing tool. And Stack Overflow can also be really, really helpful to figure out how to do things. But if you're stuck trying to figure out how to use a function, or trying to figure out how to do these cones, read the help docs. They'll often just tell you. You don't need to Google things. You don't need to get ChatGPT to do it for you. Reading the help docs is the way to understand how things, the inner workings of things. ChatGPT will get you the answer, or may get you the answer, but it won't help your understanding. And it'll be obvious to me that you're using ChatGPT because it's going to be using functions that you haven't learned about, and I may take it personally. So that's what I have to say about that. So again, get the right answer, solve the problem in the simplest way. The third level of good code is make it clear and readable for others. This is another quote from that wizard book that I referenced at the beginning. Programs must be written for people to read, and only incidentally for machines to execute. I think that's something that people don't really understand about programming. Modern programming must be written for people to read, not just for machines to execute. So this is a program. It is not a very clear and readable program. And then finally, when you include comments in your code, you want to explain why you're doing what you're doing and not just what it is. There's this meme, 90% of all comments, it says cat, and it's a cat. I can see, I understand how to read our code, so I can see what you're doing. I want you to explain why you're doing that. So that's my little 2 cents on what good code is. So that's kind of what we're going to be focusing on. Getting the answer, solving, making an elegant solution that's simple, that's clear, that's readable. And then when you include comments, the comments should say why you're doing what you're doing, not just what it is. All right, and then chapter 2 is on tidy data. So I talk about vectors and pipes, and then next week we'll do tuples. So I'd just go ahead and read this on your own. I kind of like writing it out because it can be kind of nice to have something visual. And then in the green letters, I prompt you to go ahead and do the cone. And then I tell you what you're going to learn in that cone. So you're going to read this, do the first cone, read this, and then do the second cone. And then your lab assignment for the week is done. So let's take a look at the cones really quick. Sorry, this is kind of going on a little bit long. Again, this is the thing that you downloaded. You're going to go to the folder R, and then you can open up, the cones from there. And here's what the cones will look like. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay. I give you a little bit of an introduction. ChatGPT helped me with this. It's a little cringy, but I like it for just the flavor. the first code I start with, I'm talking a lot about hotkeys because I love using hotkeys in RStudio. I think it makes programming in R just a lot more natural, and reminds you to do good habits like saving often and testing your code. So here's some hotkeys you can use. Again, like I know the hotkeys for Macs, but I don't really know it for Windows that much. So when you figure this out, you can tell me what it is. Saving, Control S on Windows, like basically everything is the same between Windows and Mac, except it's Control in Windows and Command in Mac. So Control S or Command S to save. To run the current line or selection, you'll hit, let's see, you'll hit Command Enter or Control Enter or Command Return. So for example, I have some code here. I'm just going to bring up the kelp docs on the function C, and I'm going to hit Command Return. Or if you're on a Windows machine, you just hit Control Return. And that brings up the kelp doc on the function C, which stands for combine, combines elements into a vector in the lower right-hand corner here. It has some examples. Those should be very useful for you in this code. So yeah, again, to run some code that's in your R script, you can highlight the piece of code, the chunk of code that you want to run, and then say Command Enter, or you can just put your cursor at the end of the line and then hit Command Enter. That's the same thing. Or if you want to do a point and click, you can hit this Run button here, and that does the same thing. So run. I like hotkeys. You should give them a shot. They're just not very they're not very hard to learn, and they just you just start to feel a lot more comfortable and better about stuff. I don't know. I just really like it. Okay, so that's saving, running the current line or selection. To comment or uncomment lines, you can put your cursor in the line and you can say Control-Shift-C or Command-Shift-C. Command-Shift-C. And that removes or adds. I'm removing the hashtag at the beginning of the line. Here I'm adding the hashtag. So you're kind of toggling between removing and adding it. Put that takes a line and makes it a comment, or it takes a comment and makes it, a line of code. Then moving the cursor to the beginning of a line and this works like in your browser or like in your terminal or a lot of places. On Macs, it's Control A. It's like A to E. A brings it to the beginning of the line, and Control E, moves it to the end. Control A, Control E. Been talking too long. I don't know what it is for Windows. It might be the same. But that's just something that I use a lot. Like I'll be typing some code. Here's how to do combine elements into a vector. 1, 2, 3. And then, maybe I'm working here, and then I'll say end of the line with Control E, and then run it with Command Enter. So it's moving the cursor around, and then to abort a command, this is something that's really useful, I think. Sometimes you run code that's not quite syntactically correct. Like, for instance, when you open a parentheses, you should close it. But if you forget, if you open a parentheses and then maybe you do like C1, 2, and then you forget to close it, in your console here, it'll say like plus. It's prompting you to finish the command that you've done. So it's like, what else? And you're like, no, I want to get out of here. I want to like keep on writing. Okay, well here you can just do something that errors it out, but you can kind of feel like stuck and panicky. And what you should do is like close the parentheses, right? But if you don't realize that's what you need to do, you can always abort a command by going Control-C or Escape. So I hit Control-C, and that brings me back to the little caret thing that says it's ready to receive more code. So Control C, or you can do Escape. That does the same thing. Then there are two hotkeys I want you to add. This explains the first hotkey to add, and then this explains the second. And I wanted to tell you about how to do that. The first hotkey I want you to add is how to test your answers to this cone. So the reason why I didn't have you just download 2 R scripts, the reason why I had you download this whole like little package with a folder that says R and everything is because there are tests that go along with this cone and all of the cones that I'll make. So, and that's like the definition of cones. It's interactive exercises that are really, that kind of introduce you to the whole ecosystem by going really step by step and very slow, but kind of builds throughout the cones. They get, you have to use all the information that you learned before to solve the new cone. And there's a way to check to make sure you're on the right track. And you can see the tests. You back up out of the R folder and you go to the tests folder and go into test that. And there you can see these are some helper functions to help me run the tests, and then here's the test file for cone 1. So what it does is it reads cone 1 and then looks for the answer to question 1, and it validates that the answer is 6. So you can always see like what the tests are by going there. But you don't need to do that. You can just stay out here. And when you get to the first exercise, and the first exercise is like, so it'll say number 1, and then I need you to put your answer to the first exercise inside of like this beginning and end thing. It says, here's the answer to question 1, and then ending the answer to question 1. So it'll look for whatever code is in between these 2 little brackets. And then the test figures out if the code matches what I expect it should. And the way to test, you need to add the hotkey. So you'll say, let me follow the instructions here. So you're going to reassign Control on Windows or Command on Macs, Shift-T to run a test file. So you're going to go to Tools, Modify Keyboard Shortcuts, and then Filter for Run a Test File. So Tools, Modify Keyboard Shortcuts, and then you're going to filter up here for Run a Test File. And I already have it assigned to be the thing that I want it to be, but it might be like blank for you. And all you have to do is like, you click into here, and then you say, I'm on a Mac, so I'll take Command-Shift-T, but if you're on a Windows, you'll say Control-Shift-T, so Command-Shift-T, and then you hit apply. And that's all you have to do there. And then you're going to test that it worked. So you're just going to put your cursor in the R script. I'm going to save it here. And then say Command-Shift-T. And it should run this. Well, it should run this. An alternative, if you don't want to do the hotkeys, you can just run this line of code. DevTools test active file. So that runs the test, and what you should see, what it comes up with is that it skips a bunch of questions, right? So skip, incomplete, question 1, question 2, question 3. I haven't done this cone yet, so it skips it all. And at the end, you'll see I haven't failed any questions. There are no warnings. It's skipped 10 questions because I haven't done it yet, and it's passed 0 questions. And once you start working on it, you'll see it passes 1, passes 2, all the way up to 10. And when you pass 10 out of 10, it's ready to turn on. Then there's one more keyboard shortcut to add. You can knit this document to HTML. So once you're ready to turn it in, you're not going to turn in the R script. You're going to turn in a HTML compiled R script because it's nicer to look at, especially on Canvas. And you need to reassign compile notebook to be Control or Command-Shift-K. So the same way, you're going to go Tools, Modify Keyboard Shortcuts, filter for Compile Notebook. What did I say? Compile Notebook. And it's already for me Shift Command K or Command Shift K. It doesn't matter. It'll rearrange that. So Command Shift K and apply, and let's test it. So put your cursor in the R script, say Command Shift K on a Mac or Control Shift K. Here, this little thing just says, hey, do you want this as an HTML? You could also do a PDF or Word. I want it as HTML is the way to go. It's much prettier. So yeah, say compile. And a compiled version is going to come up. It's going to pop up. You can see where it's saved, but it's saved right next to the R script for Cone 1. So that's how you find it in order to upload it to Canvas when you're done. I wouldn't want to upload it now because I haven't done anything. All of the exercises are blank, right? So this is kind of like a preview of it, but it's saved. You can check and see. It's saved in the R folder right next to, here's the R script because it ends in .r, here's the HTML. So you can look at that whenever and upload that when you're done. But again, it won't work if you don't reassign that hotkey. An alternative is just say in RStudio, say File, Compile Report, and that will also produce that HTML version. Okay, then I give you a little instructions thing, and again, ChatGPT made this for me, so there's a little cone flavor to it. So when facing an exercise, bravely fill in the blank and prepare for action. So let's go to exercise 1. I'll give you the answer to this one. It says, make the first element of this numeric vector a 6. So we're going to use the function C, which means combine elements to form a vector. And we want the first element to be a 6. So you'll delete where it says underscore underscore, and you'll replace it with a 6. And then the next line in the instruction says, once I've bravely filled in the blank and prepared for action, then I liberate the code from its comment chains using Command Shift C. That toggles it between being a comment and not being a comment. So now it's live code. I can run it by going Command Enter, and I can see looks syntactically correct. It's running. Looks like it's creating a vector, and the first element is 6. And then I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to hit Command Shift T to see if I passed the test. And looks like I can scroll up to see Cone 1. Oh, it doesn't even have a message here, but it starts with talking about question 2 because I've passed 1, and it's question 1. Yeah. So yeah, that's all you need to do. Go ahead and read all the instructions, read the help docs on the function C, and then, keep on going. I think there are 10 questions in this first cone, and then there's couple questions. How many questions? 3 questions. Only 3 questions in the second cone. So that's it. Should not take you too long. It's just an introduction.